according to the thumbnail, we are going to be taking our bearing from what is by empiricism. All right, empiricism. When we talk about empiricism, what are we simply referring to? And what is the relevance, the importance of empiricism when it comes to research work? For those of us who are new to the stream, let's ensure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that. Also, let's ensure to use the comment section. Let us know where you are streaming from. And don't have to say hi, hello, or good evening, as it depends on your area and your geographical location. All right. So for those of us who are not aware that we have a private class, this private class is where we do the most of the work. This is a community where we have like-minded individuals serious about their academics and they are willing to take their academics to the next level. All right. In the private class, we walk you through all your courses throughout the semester without leaving any unattended to. To join the private class, all you need to do is to reach out to us on our official website, which is www.coachayo.com, and on the top right hand corner, on the bottom right hand corner is where you find the button that says talk to tutor to Coach Ayo, and the moment you use that button, it takes you directly to, all right, where you get to see the option of sending us a direct message, all right, or using the WhatsApp as a means of communication, Facebook Messenger, X, or even placing a direct call. All right. So with this being said, let's get started with today's class. Now, I'd like to remind you again that as far as this course is concerned, this is a course that has a lot to do with research work. As a matter of fact, the all and sundry, all right, the all and sundry of this course revolves around what we refer to as your research work. So the purpose of this course is to guide you on how to structure, how to go about, how to properly execute and carry out your research as far as research methodology is concerned. So according to the thumbnail, it says empiricism. But just before we talk about empiricism, all right, there's something we need to first discuss, all right, which is the assumptions in research work before we talk about empiricism. Okay, now remember we discussed achieving the goal and objective of the research work in our last class. So in order to achieve the goal of understanding a phenomenon, the scientific method requires, all right, the scientific method rests squarely on some basic assumptions. So your scientific method, whether quantitative, remember we talked about quantitative and qualitative methods as regards to methodology in our last class. So whether it is quantitative or qualitative. One thing we are intentional about here is the fact that there are basic assumptions as regard to your scientific, all right, your choice of scientific method. Now, research practices shape their value based on assumptions. All right, research practices shape their value based on assumptions. To start with, based on assumption. All right, research values shapes. All right, research practices shape their value based on assumptions. Are we together? Now, when we talk about assumptions, these assumptions are represented by certain keywords. So let's understand this assumption and how they are represented by certain keywords. Are we together? Now, research, as you have said, there are other determinism, para, all right, parsimony, and empiricism. All right. So we said these assumptions are based on keywords and they are the likes of determinism, all right, parsimony, and empiricism. And inclusively, we have order. So now let's quickly talk about one of all of these accordingly. So these keywords, based on which assumptions are formed, as research is concerned, it says the assumption on order. So we have assumption of order, assumption of, let's just leave that OR. Now, we are talking about empiricism. But before we talk about empiricism itself, I said in our last class, we talked about research methodology and we're able to dissect quantitative and qualitative method of research. All right. And whether quantitative or qualitative, your research is based on a goal. For you to understand the goal, there are certain assumptions you will use to be needed. So it's these assumptions we are talking about now before we now talk about empiricism itself. So now, the first assumption here is assumption of order. As far as assumption of order, as far as assumption of order, all right, is involved, it states the nature, all right, it states that nature is ordered and not, all right, and not hazardous. Hazardous here means, all right, it states that nature is ordered and not hazardous. All events in nature follow each other in regular sequence. Okay, so we have that as that. That is the assumption based on order. All right, the assumption based on order. All right. It says that every event in nature is ordered, all right, based on a particular sequence. Are we together? Every event in nature, are we together? Every event, it states that nature is ordered and not dangerous. Nature is ordered and not absurdous. All all events in nature are ordered. Okay, they follow each other in regular sequence. They follow each other in regular sequence. All right, that is the first assumption you need to bear in mind. Also, we have here the assumption of determinism. The assumption of determinism. As far as this assumption is concerned, this assumption believes that events have causes, determinants, or antecedents. Assumption of determinism. Assumption of determinism, meaning that there is no event that happens without an occurrence. There's always something that determines an outcome. All right, like we usually say, there is no fire without a smoke. This is the assumption of determinism. It states that events have causes. Events have causes, determinants. All right, and antecedents antecedents or antecedents. Antecedents that can be detected. Let's put it that way. That can be detected. So the next assumption here is the assumption of all right, of parsimony. The assumption of parsimony. All right, we have the assumption of parsimony. I think I should erase the board so we can accommodate. Okay, I think there's still space here. I should take this back a little bit. Okay, I think that's. Let's adjust this a little bit and pull this to the side. Aha. So you can cover a whole of the up. Okay. So we have something here. It's called the assumption of parsimony. So for the assumption of parsimony, this assumption states that science investigation must be systematic and controllable. All right. Scientific. This assumption of parsimony. All right. So for parsimony, scientific investigation, all right, must be controllable. All right. It must be controllable, all right, and systematic. All right. It must be controllable and systematic. Okay. So we have that as that. When we talk about being controllable, when we talk about being systematic, all right, there are certain things we need to pay attention to here. All right. All right. It says that this state, it said for the parsimony, it says the state that the universe is organized and and should be preferred to complex. Okay. As for parsimony, let's put it this way. As for parsimony, the universe is organized and an explanation of natural phenomena. All right. Since the universe, all right, as organized, all right, and an explanation of natural phenomena, an explanation of natural phenomenon. Okay, an explanation of natural phenomena, meaning that it should be simple, all right, and should be preferred to complex explanation. Nature, as natural as it can be, it should be simple to explain. And lastly, it says assumption of empiricism. Assumption of empiricism. Let's just leave this here. Empiricism. So for the assumption of empiricism, it states that science investigation must be systematic and controllable. Okay, that was actually the one for this that I mistakenly gave to this. All right. For empiricism, it should be controllable and systematic. They should be empirical in using observable events. Empiricism has to do with what you can observe. All right. Objectivity, facts, proofs. All right. So by the essence of the fact, by the essence of the proof, you can control your variables. Are we together? So this empiricism has to do with investigation. All right. It must be what? Investigation or observation must be controllable. All right. It must be controllable. And it should be what? Systematic. It should be empirical by using observable events, not mystical events, but events that you can observe in testing theories. This assumption, as one can see, refers to what we call reliance on the field of demonstration, observation, and experiment. Are we together? Demonstration, observation, reliance, and experiments. Demonstration, observation, and experiments. So we have that as that. Let's take few more points before we call it a wrap for tonight. So all these now are basically under assumptions. All right, and this is how you start your research journey. Now, it says here, all right, facts and theory. Scientific inquiry, all right, starts with facts. Scientific inquiry starts with facts and then move towards theorizing. Scientific inquiry, all right, starts with facts before moving towards theorizing. To make the facts useful, they must be organized. All right. So you now see that the primary purpose of scientific method is to what? Develop a mechanism for what we refer to as develop a mechanism for organizing the facts as they accumulate, all right, and become meaningful from the standpoint to their objective. Now, scientists gather facts through empirical investigation. Remember what we referred empirical to as demonstration, observation, and experimentation. So scientists gather facts through empirical investigation. Then the accumulation, all right, of these facts brings about the need for investigation. When these facts are there, then investigation can commence. All right. Organization and the classification. Let's see that again. The accumulation of facts brings about the accumulation of facts brings about what? The investigation, organization, and classification. Brings about the investigation, organization, and classification. All right. In order to make the isolated findings meaningful, all right, in order to make the what? Findings meaningful, all right, and communicable. So we have that as that. Our time is fast spent. Might need to call a wrap soon so we can attend to the next class. It's quite unfortunate we started a little bit late. So let's call it wrap here for tonight. And in our next class, we'll pick it up from um, hypothesis and theory. Hypothesis and theory. So thank you very much, everyone. I believe I'm able to gain something in tonight's class. Please let's do to keep our notes up to date and submit them to the appropriate. Do have a wonderful evening and bye for now.